Hello and welcome to this edition of Finance and Technology Insights. I'm Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting. He's Eric Buhrendorf from EVERNET. What's happening, Eric?
What's up, Brian? So we're back to live producing the show this week.
Yeah, we're going to mix up a couple things. We've got we were saying this morning offline that we're coming up on our 50th episode. So we've sort of
what's the podcast fail rate? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, we did early on. It's pretty low, like a bunch of like over half. I think don't make it to
It's
10.
like the two things that don't make it past their first year, like most restaurants and podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So we're over a year.
Right.
Calendar year, and we're business and family men, so we have other interests and obligations. So we've missed a couple weeks, not too many though.
No, we really didn't. I think that's pretty standard. I mean, if you think about, sitcoms or something, what do they do? Usually between 35 and 40 traditionally. And
yeah,
most podcasts, I mean, they're taking a little break either at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, depending on their business, or a little summer downtime there. So I think 40 to 45 a year is really good.
Yeah. So I enjoy it. I'm glad that you partner with me. I'm just glad I solicited you that time, and you're into it. So we're having fun. Our viewership is creeping up a little bit, and here we're still going. So typically we check in on the personal side, and then we talk a little bit of business, and then we talk about any interesting news. What's going on?
Well, personal wise, not a ton. We've talked about some travel and stuff and usually, but we don't have anything going on this week. My big couple things is, if you sort of check the boxes, landmarks as parents or dads or whatever, we did our on-site kindergarten registration. So
that's right.
We'd done our evening one, which was kind of the big, everybody in the auditorium, here's what's happening. But then there was a group of 5 kids who, they have them split up, I think, in half an hour segments. So 5 sets of kids and parents come in, and the kids go off. It's like something out of a movie. They go out down the hall without the parents, and we're all like looking, watching, seeing if they turn around, seeing if they wave, but nope, they all just moved forward. While we're in, talking to the nurse and talking about documentation and all that kind of stuff. But that went pretty well. Initially, he was, I'd say a month or so ago, he's a little bit nervous, but I think now he's feeling it. We're feeling it. He was, now you kind of go and you look at the preschool he's at, which he's been since, I mean, as soon as they'd take him, he was there at like a month in, probably when he's a month old. So, he's moved across the rooms, and now it's like he's like a giant in his class anyway. So he's almost like kind of outgrown it physically and emotionally and all that kind of stuff. And his friends, and he's in a neighboring town, so he's in Cheshire with the preschool. So a lot of those kids, almost all of them, I guess, won't be coming with him to kindergarten. So that was the big thing. And then the other thing is we're getting him signed up for not T-ball, but a parent pitch, so he'll be doing that for April and May. So those are 2 big check the box items. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, we're into that.
We had parent teacher conferences this week, so that's you'll have that to look forward to. And it's funny how our American system, and I don't know, I guess there's some versatility to it, but it's just kind of like the kids seem to, at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year, the rate of change is just so kind of steady and in line with how the system's designed. My 5-year-old, now 6-year-old, she wasn't really strong with reading at the beginning of the school, and now she's like a top reader, and it's just kind of cool how those milestones kind of happen.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. And it's not linear, as we'd say in the business, right? It kind of seems like it plateaus, and then sometimes you're talking to them and you're like, where did you learn that word?
I know.
Where did that word come from? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny. Yeah.
It's very funny.
Things that they pick up along the way.
What's going on at work?
Oh, business wise. So we're taking on a lot of new plans. Some of it's mandate related, some of it's service related. So that's all good. Getting a lot of people came into into the beginning of the year where they're newly eligible for that plan. So some plans have quarterly eligibility. So we're getting some participants that are like, hey, I was eligible January 1st. I'm just getting around to it. And I had a guy yesterday, a young guy. I love these type of guys where he's eligible April 1st. So he's like, I know it's a little ways away. What do I need to do to get signed up? So he wants to make sure he doesn't miss out on any of his contributions, and he's doing that right away. So
Nice.
a lot of that stuff going on. How about you, business wise?
We effectively launched a new line of business. So we're kind of like two businesses now under one roof. We're effectively a digital marketing agency.
I don't
Over the
even know
last,
if you can use the roof analogy with all the remote work
I know,
anymore.
many roofs,
Many
right,
roofs.
right, right. But no, I built a marketing team for EVERNET's purposes, and that went so well that, I mean, it's always been the case that we have a client coming to us there, for our IT services, and invariably, at some point in a relationship, the client says, "Hey, I need a website. Can you guys help me with that?" And for years, we had to we either referred it away or we outsourced it, and we tried to subcontract it for a while. And my dream was always to bring that in house, so I could control the experience. And so kind of like two things happened at once. I brought in a web resource and a marketing resources, and we just sent some email campaigns out to our existing clients, like, hey, if you want your website refreshed, that sort of thing. And it just overwhelming response.
Wow.
So I've got we're basically a marketing agency now, so to speak. And I have imposter syndrome, so I don't say that word easily. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Um,
I hear you.
but the team that I built, I've got a director of marketing, and he's running the whole team, and he's running the whole line of business, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good. And that, and one of your avenues or one of your niches that you worked with was law groups, attorneys, and they're
Yeah.
historically bad with websites and marketing and all that sort of stuff. A little bit like financial services, and in that you don't want to market too much, or it kind of comes across as being not professional or needy, or it's always that. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I would say half our business is like small and medium business, SMB, less than maybe 20 or 30 employees. And yeah, they're notorious. I mean, they suffer from the same problem I had, and we all probably have, which is like, at what time in your business do you start hiring marketing resources, like
mhm.
dedicated marketing resources? And there's marketing agencies out there that will help small businesses get some marketing function running. That's really where
Right.
we're entering that space now. So
Yep, and that's I guess one of my projects sort of ties into that too, which is kind of fun for me. We're doing so one of the things, because we're an industry that's historically bad at marketing. So you've got this, we've got the mandate, which we've talked about plenty on the show, but you've also got record keepers, these 401k platforms and advisors like myself who are not great at telling their story. It's the same type of, some of that's regulation, some of that's disclosure and all that kind of stuff. But they're not really just very good at telling their story and how they got there and that sort of stuff. So what we did is we put out a LinkedIn post saying, hey, record keepers, if you're servicing the Connecticut market, if you're in that startup space, if you're in the small market space, let you and I have a session. Let's tell our story. We'll do 10 to 15 minutes. Tell us why you want to service that business, why it's important, so that when people are looking up the Connecticut mandate, they're not just flooded with the state pitching their program. It's like, oh, here's other companies that do the same thing, better, cheaper, whatever. So so we did our first interview last week. It's not a big space. I mean, there's probably 20 to 25 record keepers in there who really service that. So probably over the course of March, April, a little bit into May, probably the next 10 weeks or so, we're going to try to do one or two a week. And just push those out. I mean, some of the pushback I get is they don't necessarily want to do this with one advisor because they work with a bunch of advisors, or their compliance team won't let them do that and that kind of stuff. But I think there'll be a few who are like, yeah, this is a good opportunity. We'll get it out there. Send us the raw, tag us, do this, do some vertical, shorter form stuff. So that should be fun too. But
Nice.
I think with the legal and the investment stuff, that's definitely something that both industries are lacking. So
yeah, for sure. There's definitely a need in that space.
yeah.
So, all right, we covered our personal, we covered our business. Wow, we're just chumming right along, and maybe this is a
I like this.
carryover from Nathan, our producer, saying you gotta move quicker through these things. So, what do we normally do now? We talk about what's happening in the news.
Yeah, I wanted to see quick if there's any follow up from the last pass thing and anything you want to touch on there, like when we kind of circle back on stuff.
Yeah, so last episode we talked in depth about the LastPass hack.
Mhm.
I think they really want to put this behind them, and I can't say I blame them. So um, the last kind of communication was their blog post from the CEO and kind of their bookend to this saga. And there, from last time we spoke, I wouldn't say that there's any new news. If you're a LastPass user, you want to change as many passwords as you can in your vault, and starting with your master password. You want to actually re-register your multi-factor authentication, and that's really it. That's all you can do. Unfortunately, password managers are, they're like any other software and system. They get patched regularly, they get updated, and they get attacked regularly. And hopefully LastPass identified a significant way that they can improve their security profile. I got to tell you, we haven't lost our faith in LastPass yet, because they earn a lot of points for, I view their communication to be really transparent, um and I don't trust the smaller companies to be as transparent as LastPass was. As I would say, there's no I mean, there might be regulatory mandatory reporting, but it's still kind of elective, and there's no audit mechanism in place. So these technology companies could have, breaches and vulnerabilities and things, and they may not disclose it because of the material impact to their business.
What's been
So
the impact from clients? Are they like, oh, thanks for
zero,
letting us know, or is this a pain in the butt, or
zero,
nothing? Nothing.
zero. And I think that's kind of like the train that runs on schedule every day. You stop hearing it after a while.
Mhm.
I hate, we try to differentiate between routine patches and security issues with like really meaningful security issues, but in a way all security issues are meaningful and important.
Mhm.
So it's just, I have a feeling that to some degree there's the normals, as I call them, and I hope that isn't insulting, but like, like normal people, normal business people, non-security personnel, I think everybody's kind of at this fatigue threshold where they're like, yeah, computers and are insecure, like
Mhm.
we'll do our, so I don't know, what do you think about that?
Now, I think I think some of the things that we focus on as it being, kind of nerdy in our industry, like, oh, this is going to be such a big deal. And it's kind of like a nothing thing. Nobody's paying attention. Everybody's kind of locked in their world. But when something happens, they're relying on you to be professionals and us to be professionals. And
Right.
something that comes out that's a big deal in our world isn't necessarily a big deal to them. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, the security landscape out there, like just imagine there's like countless hackers just standing over a barrel full of fish. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just there are too many vulnerabilities. There's too many, so we just follow all of the best practices, and we just try to usher those into as many of our clients. And whenever you hear an IT company or an MSP say like total security, total complete, like
Right. Zero
it's
fail.
zero fail. Yeah, it's their lies basically. And we are very, very, very fortunate that we we have not had a client compromise in years. I would say on close to a decade. And the one client who was compromised it was because he didn't follow our recommendation. So when the ransomware virus came out, the antivirus community was not responding and protecting against ransomware attacks. And the product that we recommended, we were scrutinizing, saying this is not meeting our standards. We always review this. We always review the security products for efficacy and see if we're using the best product, And we found a better product that was able to defend against ransomware. And immediately that recommendation went out to all of our clients. And I may have talked about this before, but our clients pay us to put the antivirus on their computers. They buy the antivirus from us. I mean, the stuff that we sell is typically retail priced anyway, so it's really not the decision item. It's our labor to get it out and deployed and stuff. And so I feel bad that 6 months prior we sold our former antivirus to this law firm, and then the ransomware was coming, attacks were happening, and then we sent the notice, hey, like, we strongly urge everybody to abandon this antivirus and move to this antivirus. And I get it. Like it to a normal person, it may have looked like a double dip, but I'm not in the business of double dipping. I'm in the business of bringing the latest reasonable security measures to our clients, and everybody adopted it except for this one law firm. And then 4 months forward from that, on Thanksgiving Day, I think he was in his office and 12 computers, boom, locked out with ransomware. We had to dispatch all of our personnel there to restore his environment. And then it was. Anyways, I'm off the track, but you get the
that's
idea.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about, so there's a segment I wanted to kind of pull in here, and I'll ask you about something first, and then I've got some ideas here. But this was something that sometimes when we scroll through our social media, because of who we're connected with and whatever, we get certain themes, and certainly the ads are certain themes. And sometimes you think, well, wow, everybody's really talking about this, but they're not, type of thing. So I was just over the weekend, I said something to my wife about AI, and I'm like, man, that's all I'm seeing is all this AI kind of stuff. But so on LinkedIn, I'm going to ask you, is there any sort of professional models or some sort of professional discussions that go back and forth between people in your industry? And there's probably no right or wrong answer. Answer's probably almost in the beginning. But I've got 3, and I thought I'd maybe throw those out there, and then we could explore one of them. And then, and then if there's something in your industry that's sort of similar. So
let's hear it.
So there's 3, sort of battles or professional discussions that do sometimes get personal and ugly, which is kind of funny.
Well, it's not the internet if it's not personal and ugly.
You would think with LinkedIn, but whatever. So one of them is big discussion about annuities and life insurance, and the folks that sell those versus the people who are more holistic and are product oriented. And so a little background on that. Insurance and life insurance, annuity type products. Annuities are considered an insurance product. So they've historically been commission-based product, meaning I'm selling you a product, Eric, you're buying it, I'm getting a commission on it. Therefore, the larger policy, and annuities are considered policies, the larger policy I can sell you, the more commission I make. So it's a conflict with somebody who's not necessarily might not be necessarily working in the best interest of their client. So what's happened is those 2 products have sort of gotten a bad rap because they're sold. So the problem with that is it's led good planners to kind of stay away from those. And you hear people say, I hate annuities, or annuities suck, or life insurance. It's like, well, wait a minute, let's separate the commission-based aspect of it in the sales process from the value they could potentially add to somebody. And now you're seeing companies come full circle and say, hey, we've got a life insurance product that's cheaper because it's commission free. So you as the advisor can come up with the analysis and figure out how much the person needs and implement the solution without receiving a commission, which takes you out of the equation. And same thing on the annuity side, which has been fascinating. So now there's a whole rollout of these annuity type products that are commission free, so you can sell them without, or implement them without any sort of conflict. So that's one sort of interesting battle that's been going on LinkedIn.
I mean, I could speak to the, whenever you link a sale to a commission, the salesperson immediately has the imperative of self interest. I mean, buying a car, everybody
Right.
likes their car, or most people like their car, but everybody hates buying a car. And even to some degree, like, I really hate the process of buying a car, and kind of resent cars for that kind of experience. And then you have Tesla that comes out and says, we're going to sell direct to consumer, and now
Right.
everybody loves Tesla. They're the darling of the industry, so I mean, that's definitely good. So you're saying, do we have a product? So I guess for me, in my space, is there a product that is commission centric or commission based that causes a conflict of interest?
Yeah, that could be one. Or just in general, is there a business model of, we do it the right way, our business model is the best, or we do it the right way, our business? Is there anything like that in your industry that you
This is
kind of bounce around on?
this is hot. I like this.
I know. And
Let's
I got a
say,
couple more nuggets like those. So if you want
all right,
to
let's
sit
spend
on
some
that a
time
little
on
bit.
this one. Let me chew on it. So, I built my business as the industry calls it break fix or hourly T&M, where, you have a problem, you call us, we fix it, and we bill you X amount of dollars per quarter hour or something, right? And then the industry realized that the revenue cycle of that was too volatile for the IT company. So then they came out with this managed services model, where they basically built a model around having a IT vendor with a fixed monthly fee.
Mhm.
And I was really late to drink the Kool-Aid on that. I was really late because it just felt like, for a time, it felt like I was trying to sell something that I wasn't delivering.
Mm.
And I poo-pooed it for a lot of years, and I railed against it. And I mean, in fact, my profit margins are significantly higher on break fix T&M hourly work. So the profit margins are lower on the managed services model. But then, I matured a lot and, looked at like the imperative of typical business, and, realized that, cost control is really important. Knowing what your costs are going to be is really important, because don't forget, like, there's not only is there volatility on the revenue side for the IT company that's doing break fix work, but there's volatility on the expenses side for the client, right? So I re-looked at the managed services space, and I kind of looked at it through another lens and saying, there is value here to the client, even though the value to us is the recurring revenue that we can bank, but it's also the expectable costs that the client can bank, and you just kind of modulate that.
Mhm.
So the conflict, I guess, would be, I see a lot of my competitors obfuscate the products and services and labor that they bundle into that fixed monthly fee. And I'm railing against that right now. So my differential, so if you like, we just published, publishing our pricing was kind of a key tenet of our ethos, and we just published a new pricing page last week, which just is a huge evolutionary step forward. It's a table, it's clear, and I itemize what the price of every service you're getting in the bundle in there. And my competition doesn't do that. Most don't even publish their pricing in any capacity on their website.
Right.
So I don't know.
I like that. Is that do you run into that discussion on LinkedIn versus people who sort of do it the more traditional way versus the subscription model? Is that a debate, or is that just kind of existing?
Yeah, no, it's a debate, and sometimes, so it's the we call them MSPs, right? The
Yeah.
MSPs are managed service providers that, provide IT services for a monthly fee per user. It's the MSPs versus the break fix guys, or the MSPs versus the IT. I don't really like calling them break fix. Break fix I feel like is like strip mall PC repair guy.
Yeah.
I think the professional side of that is the ITSP, the IT service provider. So there's the managed service provider and there's the IT service provider. So it's kind of MSPs versus ITSPs, and the MSPs like have just egos that don't fit in the room, and they're like they don't even do like hourly project work anymore. They just rip these huge contracts in this very specific scope. And we look at our business is right now 50-50. We have 50% managed support clients, and we have 50% ITSP clients or hourly clients. And I am starting to see the benefit both for client and us to move more towards a managed support model. So like with our latest pricing page, for example, we don't even list an hourly pricing table on the pricing page. Now it's relegated to a light gray sentence that says hourly projects available upon requests. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a debate that rages on. Fortunately, maybe it's not a real good analog to what you described.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just curious about the internals of the industry and what you see on LinkedIn and the back and forth. So I'll give you another one here that's been kind of fun. So there's this guy out west who I know a little bit, good guy. And one of the things he's doing is he is building a 401k practice. So he's been in the industry for a while and he's done this, but his challenge to the universe on LinkedIn was, it's going to take me 3 years. I'm going to build a 401k practice. It's $1 million in revenue. He's estimating that he's going to get about $10,000 in revenue per 401k plan. So he's not doing startups. He's doing existing business, trying to take over as the advisor. And he's building this 100% through cold calling, which is the first interesting aspect. The second interesting aspect is every Friday or Monday, he documents where he is in the process. I'm at week 24. I've, closed this amount of business, this many phone calls, this many whatever. And so he's been putting this on LinkedIn, which, whether you agree with the tactic or not, I think is pretty cool. That
how's he trending so far? How's his trajectory?
So it's a tough challenge because he's I guess he's about 6 months in, but the sales cycle is such that if you're doing a 3-year project like this, your first 6 months are not going to be equal to the last 6 months. So the first 6 months, you're getting a lot of people who say, call me in 6 months or whatever. If you broke it up evenly, he's behind on his goal. But if you understand the industry and you're sort of, scaling it the right way, he's probably doing okay. And he's been obvious. He's been open and honest about some mistakes and some challenges. I think he had a key staff member who was out a little bit for paternity leave or something like that.
Welcome to business owners.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been putting this out there, and again, ton of respect for everything that he's doing. But what it's led to is a couple different people in the industry saying this is not good for the industry because it looks like this is how the industry's built, or it looks like this is a path forward for the 22-year-old. He's like, I want to get the 401k business. Oh, geez, looks like it's all cold calling. I'm going to go do something else. And then there's another faction who's in the marketing world and says, this is not how we should be doing this. So another buddy of mine who's big on video, does a good job on video. He's really getting into the editing and the presentation of it, and he's doing a good job. And he's saying, well, Steve, the funniest part about this is you're doing these weekly videos to talk about cold calling. But if I look at your first video and your most recent video, you've made such tremendous leaps and bounds in the video of making videos about cold calling. You should just be making videos and sending those out to your prospects instead. But so it's sort of started this so far 100% friendly sort of back and forth between, Steve and what he's doing, and then the folks who are saying this isn't really the right way to do it. And then from the marketing folks who are also saying, this isn't the right way to do it, but you're doing a good job. So that's another sort of LinkedIn back and forth that I'm picking up on that I thought would be interesting to share.
Yeah. I mean, so what I've learned about growing a business or building a business and then growing a business is the growth machine is a wheel with many spokes, you know, and on those spokes are marketing and sales activity. And the efficacy or the usefulness of any one spoke, I think, there's some commonality across them all, and then there's strengths and weaknesses depending on venues and businesses and specific markets. One thing that I've learned is you don't get the sale 100% of the time you don't ask for it.
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't ask for the sale, you're definitely not going to get it. If you do ask for the sale, you might get it, and unless you're selling ketchup popsicles, you should be offering some value. And unfortunately, the people that you can bring value to don't know you exist unless you market to them,
Yeah.
So video, email, billboards, buses, park benches, chamber of commerce meetings, BNI, if you know what that is, asking for referrals, and then the cold calling. I've done it all. I've done it all, and none of it works well.
But it's funny you say that, because the tagline he ends all his videos is, let's make sure I get this right here. Nothing works. Everything works. Nothing works well. I think it's
that is exactly correct.
But at the same time, he's making 100% phone calls. But it's interesting. You do have to have because when you look at the number of touches it takes to make a sale, very rarely you're going to call somebody, they say yes on the first try,
right,
or whatever. So it's, I don't know, what does it say, like 11 to 15 or something touches like that. It's crazy. But if you're doing 100% phone calls and that's your only touch, you've got to make 11 phone calls to that person, right? But if you've got to add in the local paper or in the local magazine, you're doing social media, then your 11 touches might be 2 posts that they saw in the same week. It might be they saw your ad while they were reading the Sunday paper. They saw you at a networking meeting and you made 3 phone calls. So you might be able to get there a lot faster touch wise by diversifying the ways in which you touch.
And ultimately, I think I subscribe to that model. Yeah. Put the ads in the publications, in the spaces where the clients you want are operating.
Right.
I don't believe, I know it's effective because that's how I built the business. That's how I started the business, the in-person networking. But when you break it down to a time cost value, I don't believe in-person networking anymore.
Really?
Even if you wanted to do in-person networking, I would do it through, I would try to find some virtual group and have a Zoom meeting once a week, or wine over Zoom meeting, just because of the time suck that it goes into kissing your kids and your wife goodbye at 5 p.m. so that you can go have a wine and cheese session at some business venue in town, and then sit there for an hour just trying to smell everybody's cologne and perfume and their patched suit jackets or whatever, and everybody's hungry to sell you their stuff,
right?
You know what I mean? And it's just, and I built my business doing that. But when you break it down to the time value of money, like email is the most profitable return on investment for marketing.
Yeah.
We really delved into that for the last 2 years, and we saw there's really some powerful stuff. And in fact, it's unfortunate that we were so late to it, because before email clients like Outlook and your Apple whatever would stop, you ever go open up Outlook or open up your email and there's pictures in the email, but they don't preload. You have to click a link that says I trust this person.
Yep.
Well, back in the heyday before that the software would stop the loading of those messages, marketers could tell exactly who you were when you opened your email, when you clicked and viewed what elements. It was really powerful. A lot of that functionality has been hampered, but still you can still see when you have opens, you can still see clicks, And so when you combine targeted emailing with targeted calling, we're finding that to be incredibly effective.
Yeah,
Still
there's a
not good enough.
right. Yeah, it never is. I mean, never.
Right.
You're never going to be 100% satisfied with your marketing. I would say the in-person events. When I started my business, it was kind of twofold. We just had our son. My business was relatively new, so I wasn't from this community. I'm not originally from the state, although I lived here for a while. So it was like, all right, well, I need to meet other dads. I need to meet people in the community. If I need XYZ done, I need to know who to call. So it was as much for me about meeting people in the community and
there's value to that. I don't poo-poo that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it depends on what your business is. If you're somebody who sort of progresses and eventually goes up market, you're not going to a networking meeting and having 30 people in the room who all have 30 or 30 more person companies. It's not that type of business. But if you're somebody, it's really good for realtors, people turning over houses. There's always somebody buying or selling. Yeah. It's good for, insurance agents who do that. But if, or somebody who's just starting maybe in one of our businesses, right? You're not going to open up an MSP and start working with, 100 or more employees right away. Probably you're going to do your local mom and pop and work your way up. But
yeah,
I think the virtual networking stuff, I tried a few of those during pandemic when it was the only option. I think it's good for another touch point. Like, oh, we saw this guy here, or, he's putting in his time doing this event or whatever. But boy, if anybody did that alone, I think that would probably be one of the worst paths, but it's good as a touch point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
And then you and I just, I think, proved that there's something for everybody. There's approach for everybody, and none of them work well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think if there was something you were really good at, it fit your personality, it fit your business model, I think the cold calling thing, no matter how bad you are, if you locked yourself in a basement and made 500 calls a day to whoever your prospects are, you're eventually going to get something. The law large, even if if you were somebody who's doing restaurant equipment and you went door to door to restaurants and that's the only form of marketing you did, I think you could probably be successful there. But again, you need that total fit of personality and business model, target audience, geographically,
right time, right place.
Yeah. News wise, is there anything you wanted to touch technology wise?
News. Let me check our Facebook. I've been pinning some stuff to our Facebook page. Where's all let me hang on. FinTech.
I can jump into something. What
do you got?
I got something open here. So what I'm going to share here is I'm going to share a tab here. What do you got? Something hot there?
Yeah, I just see the latest articles I pinned on our Facebook page, and it reminded me.
Okay, good. Well, I'll go through that. We can go through that after here. But yesterday, JP Morgan had what they do is they do their guide to retirement, which is like an annual publication, I love it because it's total nerdy. It's a million slides that go through different things and charts and graphs that display things in different ways. But they also couple that with an annual report, which talks about, they cover the key trends and whatever. So 401k Specialist Magazine, 401k specialistmag.com, they put together 5 key themes from the presentation yesterday. Nothing super earth shattering, but what you notice when you read these type of things is it goes, is you're looking for the themes, you're looking for what everybody else is picking up on. So the first one was the opportunities presented by Secure 2.0. We talked about that a ton on this program, but just the idea of giving new incentives for small businesses to start retirement plans. I still think that's going to be a huge trend. So it's interesting that JP Morgan picked up on that as well. Because again, this isn't necessarily a marketing piece for them. That's not necessarily an area that they play in. They're not looking to sell those really small market solutions there. So the fact that they would bring that up is pretty noteworthy. The other one of their 5 was importance of us building an emergency reserve, which is obviously anything sort of financial planning 101. But the way that ties into recent legislation like Secure 2.0 is there was some legislation built into retirement plans to say, okay, let's make a little bit of that retirement plan money accessible for emergencies. So $1,000 to cover any sort of financial need that you might have to access that without any sort of penalties. And also expanding, if there's a natural disaster, that's now put in here. If there's an issue of some sort of domestic abuse. So these are two things that were added into the hardship area that lets you gain access to your retirement plan money early. The third one was the adoption of tax advantaged accounts. So they're talking about IRAs and things you can do outside of your company retirement plan. Also, one of the other things that they mentioned, not necessarily in this article, but the idea of just having a good old fashioned brokerage account, right? That's not a 401k, that's not an IRA, that's you can put in anytime you want, as much as you want, take money out whenever you want, as much as you want. The disadvantages there obviously are you'll have to pay capital gains tax when you sell. But if you're not accessing that money and not selling, it's not generating any capital gains for you. You might have to pay capital gain. You might have to pay tax
on dividends.
Dividends, yeah.
Yep.
But there's still a lot of dividend managed funds where you might not necessarily have to do that. So that's been sort of underrated in our industry for a while. The last two, again, certainly pretty obvious stuff, but aligning your portfolio with your goals and taking a long-term view on inflation and the markets. So not making any rash decisions and making sure that everything matches up with your timeline. But that's a good piece that JP Morgan puts out. They also do monthly pieces that are their guide to retirement. But this big annual one, they always put out with a little bit of fanfare and some publicity and put some momentum around that. So I just figured I'd cover those themes. Just again, once you start hearing these from a bunch of different sources, you're like, all right, now that's kind of a trend. So whether this filters back to retirement plan sponsors or individuals out there, we'll see what they're talking about. But that's something that's going on out there. So let's see what do you got on technology side?
Yeah, let's see. So you presented that. Let me pull this out and let me pull this out, and then I'll share my screen here. I just want to, I had some other things open. That wasn't, okay, let me do this. And then, okay, so I'm going to share screen, and I think we'll do tab. Oh yeah, tabs, right? You can share tab. I'd like to share my screen though. Or I'll share the window. Here we go. Let me know when you have that. All right, so this is a report that IBM's been putting out called their cost of data breach report, and it should be self-explanatory. I think it's a free download, and yeah, it just kind of details what the financial impact of a typical data breach costs in the U.S. and over the in the world. They peg a data breach to the average cost of a data breach in the United States at $9.4 million. Now, I don't know how that is. I mean, I don't know what that speaks to the weighted average or the, I don't know if that's relative to the size of the business. I mean, I know if you're not doing 9 million in revenue and you get all of your stuff stolen, maybe right. they calculate that even in the context of payouts. So it's a pretty interesting report. It's in plain speak. They say the healthcare industry, which this does make sense because those are, healthcare agencies and services, like hospitals, they take a $10 million hit on an attack.
So why do you think that is? Is it because they're a bigger target, or they're historically lax with their security?
Well, the cost of the data breach, I think, pertains to what they're paying in probably insurance payouts or ransomware.
Okay.
And you do hear about hospitals paying ransomware to get their data back. And if you're paying the hacker to get your data back, you have been grossly negligent in managing your IT function. And maybe that's a broad accusation, because it is possible that you've had all the appropriate backup solutions in place and your network was penetrated to the point where the backups were able to be deleted. But even still, there are offline backup solutions and disparate backup solutions. So it's whatever your risk exposure is, there's layers of protection to mitigate that, and to reduce your risk profile. So, I didn't do a deep dive on this yet, but I don't know if they calculate this as insurance payouts or ransomware payouts or the combination of both. But certainly the healthcare industry has a higher standard than, let's say, mom and pop CPA firm or something.
Yeah, right. I'd like to see that number broken down like per employee or something like that, just to give some sort of relative feel. Because you're right, your mom and pop organization isn't necessarily going to be out 10 million on that. If they are, hopefully they've got some sort of insurance to cover that.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, if you look at the size of our business and the size of our clients, and I've run the numbers before on the annualized revenue that we are charged with protecting. Mm-hmm. It's well over 100 million a year, and we're a small company, relatively, and so if we were compromised, or maybe a CPA firm, if they were compromised, maybe a small CPA firm touches 100 or 200 clients and annualized that, so it's hard to say. I didn't do a deep dive on how they derive this number. I guess I should probably do that, but they're flashy numbers. They talk about initial attack vectors. Stolen or compromised credentials are costly. Stolen or compromised credentials were not only the most common cause of attack, but at 327 days took the longest time to identify. So this implies that if your credential is compromised, you might not know about it for almost a year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What is usually the triggering event when people realize they've been compromised?
That's probably what it amounts to, why it takes so long, because if you have a credential that's compromised, a good hacker won't do anything on the account. Mm-hmm. They'll just maintain access to it. It's usually when the hack happens, when the hacker executes their initiative, is when So we support a lot of law firms, and of those law firms are a lot of real estate attorneys, and the real estate attorneys are heavily targeted right now by hackers because they are the intermediary between hundreds of thousands of dollars being moved in financial transactions for the sale of real estate. So the hacker could compromise your email, and this is how they do it. They compromise the lawyer's or paralegal's email. They create a forward rule on the mailbox, which is not something that's front and center. You don't see your message rules every day. You don't know when a message rule is firing in your inbox.
Yeah.
So he's now getting a copy of all of your email, sent and received email, and they just monitor and wait for a real estate closing to occur. And the process had been typically the paralegal would email the client and say, what's your bank's routing number and account number? And then they would go to the seller and what's your bank, and they would, the paralegal or attorney would manage the transaction. And then it's like, okay, send me your information. I'm going to wire you the money now after the closing. And then that the sender would send the information, and then the hacker would malform an email that looks just like the original sender and then quickly insert and say, oh, I just sent you there was an error in the routing code. Here's the correct number. And it looks very normal. And then you've got it. And then you say goodbye to $500,000. And then your client says, the seller's bank didn't receive the money. What's going on? And then the attorney goes, well, we sent it.
Yeah, and the chances of recovery there are pretty slim.
Very, very slim. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is that's something we're actually going to be doing some new, we're going to do some more. So average savings of containing a data breach, key cost factors, average cost of a ransomware attack, $4.5 million. So yeah, it's costly.
Yeah, and to tie it all together, if you think back to our opening discussion about different fee models and things like that, if you were on a model where you're break and fix, I think was the term you
break fix, yeah.
Break fix, yeah. I mean, so you might be less, if you're somebody who's paying the bills, you might be less likely to report something, be like, that's probably not a big deal, or whatever. I don't want to pay somebody a few $100 an hour to come out and look at this just to tell me everything's okay. Whereas if you're on a subscription-based model and you're sort of paying for that, well, anyway, it might affect behavior.
Yeah, and the real, I don't think I made this point either with the break fix hourly model versus the managed support model. The difference really between those two models is you're an attorney or you're a brokerage business firm manager, owner, whatever. With the hourly model, you're managing your IT.
Mm-hmm. Right.
With the managed services model, we are managing your IT.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key difference. So there is value, and that's what I've come to learn over the years, that the managed services model really is key to running a business properly. If you ask me, because if every business needs these. You need an attorney, you need an accountant, you need an IT resource. Like that's just what you need to run business. Unless you're running a lemonade stand and you're earning less than $600 a year, like that's just what you need in business, and should your dentist be managing his IT and HIPAA security? No, probably not. So that's it. What do you say? All we got one in the can or what?
I think so. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there.
That was pretty good. We're for our classic pod model. So I'll bring us out. My name is Eric Buhrendorf. I'm the CEO of EVERNET Consulting. We're a national IT consulting and support firm. We manage and support the IT networks and needs of businesses all over the country, and we now do marketing services with that. I am joined with my partner, Brian Williams of Northshire Consulting. You have anything to say there?
Yeah, NorthshireConsulting.com. Most of our social media stuff is at 401k and beyond. And we'll see you out there.
All right, we'll see you next week.